There's so many definitions about being a beginner lifter, intermediate, advanced, etc., elite, etc. And there's so many measurement ways. I think the most common would be like, how much do you lift, right? Like, how much do you bench press? How much do you deadlift? How much do you squat? How much do you overhead press, row, all that stuff. But the thing is, that has flaws. You can be tailored towards a lift. You can have short legs, long arms, boom, you're amazing for the deadlift. But you might not have trained it at all. Like, as a generality, how much you can lift is mainly a heuristic, a very simple and easy way to determine potentially what level you may be at. However, I don't think that's the best. And I like a different method of measuring a level currently, which I believe actually corresponds better than just strength. So my model is a tripartite model, which big fancy words just means 3-part model, composing of the 3 categories: consistency, programming, and training. And so from here, depending on, if you have all 3 of these for a certain amount of time, you are placed within the beginner ranks, intermediate, or advanced. So beginning for the first one, consistency, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like, how consistent have you been working out? Are you showing up 90% of the time? This doesn't mean like showing up 90% of the year, just rather 90% of your training schedule. If you show up 90% of the times when you're supposed to show up, you're consistent. You get an A, right? You have this factor. And the second is programming, which is definitely more nebulous. It's hard to tell if someone knows how to program or not. It's hard to tell if you know how to program or not. If I had like a book with programming knowledge and then pointed to you and asked you if you knew all this stuff, and then you would be good at programming, right? But unfortunately, I cannot just like give you a book right now and just like, hey, you know this, right? Yeah, you know this. So I'll just instead give some broad categories. So like, you should know the triad: volume, intensity, frequency, and how to balance those 3 into a workout regimen. Naturally, this also means that you should know sets and reps. So that encompasses beginner. To be an intermediate, you should also be able to make your own program, right? And if you can't, well, you are still a beginner. You should also know how to progress besides simply adding weight. Like, you should know how to progress with tempo, with range of motion, etc. And also what to do if deviations occur. Deviations being like, you go on vacation, you're sick. What do you do then, right? And finally, you should know some basic periodization. Right? Periodization is basically programming over a longer period of time than just a workout, right? It's programming a week, a month in advance, a couple months in advance, a year in advance. That's periodization. So just having a basic concept of periodization it's good. And it sounds like a lot, but if you've been in the fitness sphere on YouTube and have watched people like Jeff Nippard, Mike Rizzotel, you just have the programming knowledge. It sounds like a lot when I list it out in this way, but these are fairly intuitive things. These are fairly intuitive concepts that you should pretty much know. And finally, the last factor is simply, do you train hard, right? Do you always stop when you start feeling some discomfort, or can you push through it until you physically cannot perform another rep? You can try all you want, but you can't do it, right? That's failure. And if you train hard, pushing past discomfort, you got the factor. Right? And all in all, I'll blow up a chart detailing the time frames and level correspond. So basically, if you have all 3 over a certain amount of time, you can achieve this level, or you're at this level and you haven't, then you're not there. So in general, the time frames for having any of these qualities is highly individual. You may have just learned periodization information in this past month, but you've trained hard consistently for over 3 years. For that, I would still say you don't have the qualifications to be an intermediate because you don't have all 3, right? You can have 3 years of training hard consistently, so that's 2 out of 3, but you don't have 3 years of knowing programming, of experiencing programming, of building your own program. And so you notice without any of the 3, you'll always be a beginner, right? You'll never be able to become an intermediate or advanced lifter if you don't have all 3. I believe this model is the best, but you may find flaws with it, or you may just not like it. Use this model or not, or even better, use it to construct your own model, a better model for you. It is, however, important to know at which part you are at. So if you're a beginner or an intermediate, or advanced, because that will influence how you train and also schedule your life. So training as a beginner is undoubtedly going to be different than as an intermediate. Training as an intermediate is going to be different as an advanced athlete. And so these can be differences in how you program and therefore look at time frames. For example, training as a beginner doesn't really count. You don't really need a periodization. You don't need to think ahead that much. You just go to the gym, you train. That's it. As an intermediate, you also don't need to know that much, but you should. As an advanced, you really need to know how to periodize your training, because the gains you get won't be nearly as linear as the ones you get when you're a beginner. So, if you've learned something, if you believe you've identified what level you're at, great for you. Nevertheless, give it a like, subscribe, and a kiss.